Alright, so in this video we're going to redo the things we've done so far. I'm gonna create a project from scratch and I'm gonna create a system to move the character. I'm gonna make the camera follow the player, and we're gonna have the proper animation, an idle and a running animation to work with it. So alright, let's go ahead. Go to Unit and create a project, right? You're gonna create a clean project here. Go to the hierarchy window, right click, 3D object, cube. You can rename it. I'm gonna rename it floor, you can rename it ground, whatever. So alright, click on it, go to the inspector, set X scale to 100 and Z scale to 100. Alright, right click on the assets, create a material so that we can put a material color on it. I'm gonna call it floor.mat, underline mat actually, underscore mat. Click here, pick a color. I'm gonna get this shade of green, and once I have it I'll just drop it here. Alright, so now I need a player, right? So my player, I'm gonna go to the internet, let's go to Mixamo. That's the website we used last class. So go to Mixamo. You need an Adobe account. If you don't have one, you're gonna need one. So click on characters. You can pick the character you want here. It doesn't really matter, right? I'm just going with the Y-bot because it's like a standard, so I'm gonna use this one. All right. Once you click here, you have the character. Make sure it's the tab characters. Download. I'm gonna put FBX for Unity. Download it. All right, it's downloading here. Oh, that's from the previous one. Yeah, just, is it there? No, yeah, it's not here. It's just from the previous one. So click on animations. We're gonna have an idle animation. So this idle works for me. I'm gonna get it. It's okay. So download. It can be FBX or FBX for Unity because you're gonna do the avatar manually. Don't worry about it. Both should work. So download the idle animation. Once you download it, let's get a running animation. Let's see. This, I think this one here should be okay. Let's click in place. This one is okay. I'm gonna get it. Again, I'm gonna get FBX for Unity. It doesn't have to be, don't worry. Preparing, download, okay. So once you have all of them, just, all right, slide them and copy or drag them into your unit here. All right, so once you have them here, select the three of them and let's apply some change. So in the inspector window, you should have this. Click on rig and change the animation type from generic to humanoid and apply. All right, go to animation and let's not click. Let's do that individually. So select the idle and the running animation, right? And then you go to rig, and where you read this, create from this module, change from copy from other avatar. So we don't want these animations to perform on their own. We want it to perform on the character we have. So click, if you look for the character here, it has this little arrow here. Click on it, and it should be the avatar here. So we have to drag the avatar into the source. So that this is us telling Unity to apply those animations into this avatar, not a different one. So do that. All right, once you've done that, we can close it here. Right click on this animation. Oh, hate that. All right, let's just bake it into pose. So bake into pose. I'm gonna put Y, X, and Z here, and I also can select loop time. Yeah, I'm not going to select loop time now. All right. We're gonna do the same for running. So bake into pose, X and Y. If you don't do this, the animation will be like shaking a little bit, so you'll be the horizon shaking a little bit, so it's not good. It stabilizes the camera, right? So now we're gonna drop our character, our iBot here, into the scene. If it's not FBX for Unity, it's going to be a bit bigger. No problem. So we have our character here. We're gonna do two things now. We're gonna, with our player selected here in the spectrum, we're gonna add component character controller, right? Not rigid body, not box collider, just character controller. All right. The first thing we have to do is to make sure that the collider that comes with it, it's okay. You can see that it's not quite fitting the box of our character. So let's change this a little bit. So with the player, inspector, character controller, we have to change the Y. Maybe 2, no, that's too much. So 1, yep, that should work. So now it's fitting the body of our character, right? This is the collider. It comes with the character controller, and it has some kind of gravity already, so we don't have to change that. All right, another thing we're gonna do is with our mouse on assets window, right click, create animator controller. I'm gonna call it animate. All right, and I click on the player again. You can see that the animator here is missing a controller, so we drag our controller to that part. All right, now double click the controller, and we're gonna have this here. Let's see if our animations are working properly. So I'm gonna drop the idle animation here. You can see that it's set orange. That means that it's the default one. Every time we play the game, it's going to go straight to there. Let's see if it's true. Click play, and we should have the idle animation here. And that's it. It's idling, right? Stop the game. Let's get our running animation and put it here. And right click on idle, make transition, and select the transition to running. So when we start the game, you should play this animation, and then it goes to run and stop because there's no loop selected. So let's see if it works. So idle and then run, and it stops, right? Because we're not setting it to be in a loop. All right, so the animations are working fine. Let's now we can leave it here. No, let's just leave it here. So right click on assets window, create a C# script. I'm gonna call it movement, and I'm gonna open Visual Studio. Let's just ignore this. Did I select? No? All right. Oh, here it is. Great. So let's start creating variables. So what we're gonna need here, we're using character controller and we're using animator. So we have to create these variables, right? So I'm gonna start with the controller. So it can be private, it doesn't have to be public. So private character controller. Why I didn't get it? Yeah, now I did. Private character is. There's something wrong. Why is it not calling it? Let me close this and start again. No, I don't want it. Just close it. Weird. Maybe it's from the previous project. I don't know. All right, let's see if it's working now. So private character controller. All right, now it works. I'm gonna call it player because this is our player. Private animator because we are using the animator. I'm gonna call it animate. All right. So inside void start, we're going to initialize those components. So player equals get component lesser greater character controller open and close parenthesis and semicolon to close. Do the same for animate equals get component lesser greater animator open and close parenthesis and semicolon, right? So this is how we initialize. Oh, it's missing animate. Great. So now we have our component. We're also going to do something here. Sometimes with the control is the best practice to tell Unity where we want our player to initialize, right? You can get stuck, you can get in trouble. So we're gonna tell where we want it to start. So let's just do this real quick. Game object, and every time we say game object, we're referring the object which this script is attached to. So in this case, it's going to be our player. So game object transform position because we want to set the position of our character. So this takes vector 3 as parameter. So new vector 3, and here we can set the value. So we want it to be the 0 for the axis, 3 for the y, so that it starts floating and then it goes to the floor, and 0 for the z. This should be okay. So I'm gonna save. Let's see if it's working. Did it work? I couldn't see it. Let's. Oh, first I have to attach the script to our character. So let's do that. All right. So now it should. Yes. So this is what you wanted to do, right? You wanted to do that so that we have control on the position it's starting, right? All right. Very good. So now we want to start the script to move our character. We're going to create some variables here. We're going to create a private vector3 because we're using controller, so we need a vector3. I'm going to call it move dir, short for move direction, and I don't need to initialize it right now, so that's okay. I'm going to public because I want to change this from the engine. Public float speed equals 6 should work. If you want it to move faster, you just move it, increase this value here. I'm gonna have a public float. Let's get here. We're gonna use rotate. So rotate. That can be 0 because we change it later. Let's get a public float rot speed, the speed of our rotation. I'm gonna set it to be 100. Any value from 100 to 150 should be okay. And all right, so let's go to void update. That's where our code for moving is going to be. So to move our controller, and we're gonna include the jump code for this one, we want it all just to happen if our character is in contact with the ground, right? So if our character is touching the ground, it moves. Other way, it doesn't, right? So we're going to start this with an if statement. So if open and close parenthesis, this is the if statement, so brackets. So inside the parenthesis, we're going to call our player that we call the player. So the controller is player dot, and we're going to use the function is grounded. So unit detects it if it's in contact with a surface, right? If it's a collider, so it just moves it if it's in contact with that. In case it's going to be our floor. So all the code just going to happen if that's true. So To start, we're gonna create our vector tree. I mean, we created it already. We called it move deer, right? But we're gonna start getting values. For now, it's just 0, 0, 0. So move deer equals, and then we're gonna create a vector tree. So new vector tree. And remember, vector tree has 3 values, like this, right? For this, we don't want to move the x or y axis. We want to move the z one. And how do we move it? We're gonna get input from the user. So input dot get axis, open and close parentheses, open and close quotation marks. Oh, we have one more parenthesis, right? Not 0 parentheses, because this is for get axis and this closes the vector tree. Okay, so here we're gonna have vertical, right? It has to be, the V has to be capitalized. So why get axis vertical? Which keys are going to change as well? You just go to Unity, wait for the update, click on edit. It's updating. Yeah, it's still updating. All right. So edit, project settings, input. So it opens here. So we checked vertical. So vertical, down and up, the arrows, or S or W. So you can change it here if it's not those. So all right, here we have move deer, we have a vector tree, and we have an input from the user, but we want to control the speed. So what are we gonna do? We're going to, oh, first, no, let's do something before multiplying this by our speed. So because we're gonna use transform to move our player, if we do this, it's going to use the axis, the directions of the player to move, not the directions of the world. And we wanted to use the space, right? The axis that it should be is the axis of the place where it is, not its own axis. So we're gonna multiply move deer to our function, right? It's going to be equal transform. And it has this function called transform direction. So it changes from local to world, right? If you click here, I open it here. So transform direction from local space to world space. This operation is affected by scale, right? So that's what you have to do. So it corrects our value there. And once you have it, okay, just, oh, let me actually apply it, right? You have to open and close parentheses, and it's going to apply to our vector tree and close semicolon. So transform direction and applies into it. Okay, now we can multiply it to the speed we have. So move deer equal move deer times speed. All right. So if we just go down and try to move, is it going to move? No, because we never told Unity we're moving our character, right? So out of the is grounded, now we're gonna actually tell Unity to move our character. So how are we gonna do it? Well, we're gonna call our controller, that is player, and we're gonna use the function move. That's how we move a character controller. And what is the argument that it takes? Well, it takes as argument the vector tree just created. So we store the value input that we get the input from the user here. We correct the direction of it. We multiply by speed, and here we apply the movement. So move deer. But if we leave it this way, it's going to be applied every single frame, and we don't want it to be applied every single frame. We want it to be applied per second. How do we do that? We multiply it to time dot delta time, right? So I'm gonna save it and go back to Unity. Let's see if it works. I should be able to move like forward and back here. So, oh, it's updating. Ready? Don't mind the animations. The animations, they're not playing any role here. Yeah, you see, I can do that. I can go forward. I can go back. I'm not able to rotate the character. We're gonna do that in a moment. All right, let's go back to our script. So we want to rotate. So inside the is grounded, we're gonna create. We created already the variable rotate and rotate speed. Okay, so rotate is going to be equal what? Well, we need to get input from the user. input.getAxis, open and close parentheses, open and close quotation marks, horizontal, right? And we can go ahead and multiply it by rot speed, the speed of the rotation we created here, and we can go ahead and multiply it by time dot delta time so that it's applied per second, close here. So again, this doesn't tell Unit to move anything at all. It just stores the input from the user multiplied by the rotation speed and time dot delta time inside this variable called rotate. How do we rotate our character? Well, we are going to use a transform. So transform, not translate, but rotate, transform, rotate. And this takes as argument a vector tree, so it's da-da-da, like this. But how do we rotate the character? That's not the X, right? We don't want to change it sideways. You want it to move its direction, its axis, right? So the y-axis. So here we're gonna apply the rotate. So I'm saving. Let's go back to Unity, wait for the update, and let's see if it works. So can I rotate it? Yes, I can rotate it, right? That's it. If it's too slow for you, you can just increase, right click on the eyebot here and increase the speed of the rotate. So maybe 150. Yeah, that sounds better. All right, so remember, everything you do while the game is running is not saved. So just go back here and change it to 150 while the game is not playing. So that's going to be saved. Great. Now we can move our character, right? What else we wanted to do? Well, we want the animations to play a role here. So how do we do it? We're gonna just go out of the if here. So not inside the if statement here. We already initialized our animator. It's called animate. So let's go here. Let's create an if statement. So we want the animation of running to be played if our character is playing. How do we know if our character is playing? Well, we have a vector tree and we have the X, Y, and Z axis inside of it, right? So to put it in words, if our vector tree Z is different than 0, that means our character is running. It's moving, right? So inside this if state, we're gonna have exactly that. Our vector tree is called move dir. So if move dir, but move dir is a vector tree, so it has 3 different values. You don't want the 3 of them, you just want the Z one. So dot Z. If move dir Z is different, and that's how we set different in C#, right? Exclamation point equal 0. So if move dir Z is different than 0, that means our character is moving. So we are gonna set the animator that we called animate. We're gonna say set boo, and the parameter here is a parameter we're gonna create in the animator. We're gonna call it running. So if move dir Z is different than 0, that means running is true, right? Semicolon here. Else, that means if move dir dot Z is 0, that means our character is stopped. So we want the animation idle to play. So we're gonna say enemy dot set boo, because it's gonna be a boolean like true or false variable you create there. So running is false. Semicolon. So if move dir is different than 0, that means our character is moving, so run is true. If it's 0, it's not moving, run is false. So save, go back to Unity, and let's control this. So the transition from idle to running, we're gonna click on it. Oh, it's updating. All right, click on it, and we're gonna, oh, first, no, come back here. So go to the animator tab. It's here. If you don't have it, just double click animator. So let's create a parameter. we call it's what's the type of our parameter? It's a Boolean one, so bool. We called it running. The spelling has to be exactly the same as the one you wrote there, or it's not gonna work. So now let's go to our idle animation, right? Double click it. So animation, we want this to be in a loop this time. So select loop here. If you don't have this window, just double click idle, should open for you. Apply. All right, so from idle to running, select the transition. Conditions, let's list the conditions. So select our running variable. If running is true, we go from idle to running. Right click on running, make transition, back to idle, select the transition, and we conditions here, running, select false. So if running is false, we go back from running to idle, right? So this should work. But now, let's play so that you can see what happens. So I'm here, I start running, right? And you can see that our running is not in a loop. So let's stop, double click running, and select loop, loop into pose, apply. We need that. All right, let's see if it works. And it does. Yes, it does. But you can see that when I stop, when they start, right, my character is here, and then I want to start moving, you can see that it slides a little bit before running. Why? Well, because our animation, if you right click on it, no, sorry, not the animation, the transition, it has an exit time, so it's going to play the whole animation before changing to the one that the conditions are met. So just uncheck here, click on the other one and uncheck. So now when you play, it should, as soon as the conditions are met, it should change the animation. Let's see if it works. And yes, this time there's no sliding around, right? I'm gonna stop again. And it starts moving from where we are. All right, so there it is. You have a character that's moving around. Now, I want the camera to follow it. Okay. Let's make a pause so that I can cut this video here. So pausing. All right, so how do we move this character with the camera, right? So click on scene. So we have the game window here. Select the camera. Find the position that you think it's the best for our camera. So maybe here. You can click on this tab here so that you can rotate your camera like this. I'm gonna click here and put it up again. All right, so when you find the position that you want it to be, just get the camera and drop it inside the player. Well, if you hit play now, you're gonna see it because the camera, it's attached, it's a child of the player. When the player moves, the camera moves. So let's see if it works. And that's it. The camera follows the player now, right? All right. So we have the camera following our player. That's a simple way to have the camera in your game. You can use code to do that as well. It's not the best practice, but you can do it. It's a very simple way. Okay, now let's just add one more thing here. We want our character to jump. So let's go back to our script. And inside the if player is grounded, because we can just jump if the player is in contact with the ground. We don't want it like double jumping on sky, no. So let's create another if statement. This time we have a nested if, so it's an if statement inside an if statement. Open and close parentheses, set the if. Okay, so if, how do we jump? We get input from the user, so input dot get button, open and close parentheses, right? And inside here we're gonna have jump. So but how do I know which button is going to jump? Well, we go back to Unity, wait for the update. All right, go to edit, project settings, and then you have input, and then you just select jump. Where is it? So jump. The name is jump with the J capitalized, and the button is the space. So that's how you're gonna jump in this game. So go back to your script, jump is capitalized. Okay, so if the player hits the space to jump, what's gonna happen? Well, have to move the player, which is the X is being moved. It's not the Z, it's not the X, it's the Y one. So we have to move it. But how are we gonna move it? Let's create a variable to it. So public float, we're gonna call it what? Jump speed. It can be jump speed equals. I tested this, and 10 should be quite a lot, so maybe something between 9 and 8 should be okay, right? So 9 and 8 should work fine. And we're gonna create another variable here, public float, and we're gonna call it gravity. We're gonna have to add gravity manually this time. So gravity, well, gravity on Earth is 10, so 10 should be okay here. So you have jump speed and gravity, two float variables, right? So if the player hits the space to jump, what happens? Well, our vector tree moved here is going to be adjust, but not the whole moved here, just the Y one, because we're gonna make it, right? So moved here equals, and then we're gonna make it be equal to our jump speed, right? Because that's what we wanted to do. So if player hits the space, the moved here y-axis is going to be equal to jump speed. All right. So if we do that, the player is never going down, right? We need to add some gravity. So here I'm gonna put the gravity. So outside the if statements, you come here. So what is gravity, right? We just have to change the y-axis of the player. So move deer equals move, oh sorry, not move deer. Move deer y equals move deer y minus, and then we're gonna open parentheses here, and we're gonna have here our variable gravity, and we don't want it to be applied per frame but per second, so multiply. So I'm gonna save it. So because update is read by Unity every single frame, right? Every single frame it's gonna have move deer y, and it's gonna subtract gravity times the delta time from it, right? So let's see. Oh, it's updating. All right, let's see. It's already playing. All right. So can I move? Yes, I can move. All right. Can I rotate? Yes, I can rotate. Can I jump? Oh, that's quite a lot still, right? All right. Now, here goes a challenge for you. Can you set an animation for this jumping? Right? That's a good thing for you to set an animation for this jumping. You know, maybe it's too much. Let's just reduce it to, right, jump speed 8. Let's put it here so I can see. Still a lot. So maybe 6. Yeah, that's okay. It could be a bit more, 6.5 maybe. Yeah, that seems okay. But it depends on the game we're gonna create, of course, right? So that's it. Next class we can think of an animation for this jumping here. Alright, so that's it. See you.